Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Having never experienced a true change in layout, today's circuit is the very definition of old school. Fast and flowing, with few areas to overtake and plenty of places to get it wrong, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park is a gem of a circuit, but one that is just as punishing as it is rewarding. Hello everyone and welcome to the Radical Racing Challenge here on Apex Racing TV. My name is DJ Clark, joined in the commentary booth by Sam Fitzpatrick, who's also on our directing and producing duties behind the scenes. And Sam, this one's gonna be tough. Far from the draft fest that we saw at Monza, I think today is all gonna be about incident mitigation and making sure that you keep all 4 tires on the black stuff.
Oh yeah, this circuit is lined by, may as well be landmines on the outside of the track because it is so slippery, the grass on iRacing, and this circuit has a lot of grass. Turn 2, Turn 3, Turn 1, Turn 5, all of them are going to be really punishing if you push it that little bit too far. And so will be quite a test for the drivers, and as you were saying, very different to where we visited last round.
Very, very much so, and overtaking going to be at a real premium around here. Looking at the overhead track map, you would think that there's going to be a couple of opportunities to be able to send a good move in, maybe going into Moss Corner or potentially coming through Clayton or Quebec, but the truth of the matter is that really your only good chance to overtake is going to be going down the long Mario Andretti straightaway into the S's at the end of the lap as we watch Roosendahl right there getting it wrong, coming through Quebec. A little bit of what we talked about, just getting things a little bit off, a little bit offline, and that will certainly throw you out. As here we watch Ricardo Gallaretta working his way through right now. He's going to cross over the line, trying to beat Bone, who is up at the top of the charts. Gallaretta going to be able to move his way up there with a time of 1:13.6, immediately pipped by Rolston. They're up at the top right now with a 1:13.5, 2 laps to be able to put down here in qualifying as we watch Felix Simoes coming across the line right now. Looks like that's an outlap for the Portuguese driver, so not able to get it down there, but plenty of other drivers in the field right now. We've got a healthy field here of about 14 or so, probably for the better, I think, in terms of these drivers, as you do not want to have a whole lot of cars on this track, as that can lead to some pretty massive headaches.
Yeah, we very nearly had 26, 2 splits of 13 tonight. And had we had 26, I think we would have had a few drivers lapping by the end of the race. So maybe will be advantageous for these top drivers. Some purple sectors being set. Bone has set the purple first and second sector, but they're both being improved on by other drivers. He crosses the line, and it's only good enough, or it is good enough to move up. Very delayed there, moving up the timings, but he doesn't care. He's up there near the top. What can Gallaretta do? He's now approaching the line. He's across. Is that going to be improvement for him? Yeah, significant improvement. Seems to be a lot quicker on the second lap. Of course, the tyres not really getting into their operating window within that first flying lap, and so that second lap seemingly really quick. Here comes Simoes. I think this will be a fair bit off for Simoes. I doubt he'll be at the top, and it's 4.5 tenths. So if he can improve like we've seen the other drivers improve on their second lap, DJ, Simoes should be right in there for pole position.
Yeah, I have to agree with that, and Felix obviously one of the stalwart fast drivers here in the field, and he's got plenty of time to get that second lap in. We watch here Rosendahl as he's going to cross over the line. Looks like the first lap maybe discounted there for the Dayach driver, going to come in there in 8th place. I think actually that first lap that we saw him on was an out lap. Mahoney going to be in P9, Stadler in P10 as they run. We jump on board here with Felix Simoes coming through that ever tricky Moss hairpin. Such a difficult corner because of the elevation change. Double apex right-hander. So very easy to pick up a little bit of understeer and find yourself on the outside of the circuit.
Yeah, it's one of the most tricky corners in all of iRacing, honestly. Like, the entry is one of those corners as well where the more you push it on the first part, the more it opens up the second part of the corner as well. So the further you can push it, the more speed you're going to get, but that penalty is so severe. You push it a little bit too far and you're going to be around. Here comes Simoes. A good lap time for him. He does improve. However, it's not enough to get him up there. Josh Brain stays in 3rd position as well, and that means that we've only got a couple more drivers to complete their lap times before we will be into the race. We've got Rosendahl and Mahoney. Mahoney in his home race, the car number 7, so should be competitive out there. Here comes Rosendahl to the line for his second lap time. This might get him into the top 5, you know.
As in Oh, just off it there for Rosendahl, and that is going to be a little bit too little too late as we get ready to grid up here, and we will go ahead and run you through that qualifying order here. It's going to be Chris Redmond lining up in pole position with Felix Simoes in P2, Josh Brain and Ricardo Galarreta in P4. Then it's going to be David Rolston and Patrick Rosendahl in P6. Hartmut Bone will be in 7th, followed by the hometown favorites Eric Mahoney, Todd Brandt, and Diego Stadler. Then it's Tom McLaren, Just Simpkins, and Boba Newman rounding out your 13-car grid. Not a lot of room to maneuver here on this very short front pit straightaway. It immediately dives off into turn 1. There you can see it, a great overhead blimp perspective. This is, frankly, one of the shortest straightaways on the entire circuit, so it's going to be very, very tricky. And coming off of a standing start here, these drivers are going to have to be on their games immediately. We talked a little bit in qualifying about how it took a little bit to get those tire temperatures up to that peak operating window. I think drivers are going to have to be a little bit careful coming through these first couple of corners here on this opening lap, as there we get a great perspective from Chris Redmond's car, looking down that little bit of a dip going into the first corner. Certainly inviting drivers to try to make a little bit of a pass, but you have got to be high commitment to be able to make it work. There is the view from Felix Simoes right now. Simoes is going to hope to maybe sweep around the outside with a good start in that number 1 machine. Josh Brain in 3rd place, just waiting to get things going there. Looks like we are waiting for the 11th place machine, Tom McLaren, to get onto the grid here at this point. Couple of revs there of the engine as drivers eagerly await the drop of the green flag and the lights going out here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, as we here are excited as well. A 19-lap race in store for drivers, as there it looks like McLaren is not going to grid up as the lights come on and the engines begin to harmonize, and there goes the green. We are racing in Canada, and that is a brilliant getaway there from Felix Simoes, immediately leaping out to the lead there. He is going to put Chris Redmond back in his path. Josh Brain and Ricardo Galarreta look like they're going to be battling a little bit coming down into Clayton. Galarreta going to be able to have a nose ahead here at this point, trying to get a little bit eager about that. Was Rolston there trying to see if he was going to be able to make a move coming through the corner, but it looks like he's going to fan himself out. Now it looks like the number 7 of Eric Mahoney, the hometown hero, tried to get a little bit more speed around the outside of Quebec, but it's not going to play out as they dive down the hill and enter into Moss Corner for the first time, Sam.
Yeah, you get Hassan Constantino effect. That's over the curb, and that is wide for Diego Stadler. But he's kept it on the circuit, so he's only lost a little bit of time. McLaren still not taking to the start of this race. No, he's had his own mistake. Sorry there, Tom. But you didn't take the start, and you made us wait on the grid for a while, so honestly, that pays you back right there. Great start for Simoes. He was way clear of Redmond, but Redmond wasn't awful. I mean, he wasn't under much pressure from the guys behind, but it was just a brilliant start from many of those drivers on the even side of the grid. Galarreta gaining a place, Rosendahl as well gaining a position, so very profitable for those drivers who started on the outside. But Simoes, that gap had opened up to over half a second. Immediately, Redmond has been able to cut it down, and he's looking very racy tonight.
Yeah, credit there to Chris Redmond to be able to close that. I thought when Simoes was able to get the jump, he was going to streak off into the distance, but clearly Redmond has other ideas, although he's going to lose time there coming down through Clayton, and he's got to be a little bit careful. If you run just a little bit wide coming through that corner, you are going to find yourself into that long stretch of grass. As here, we've got a little bit of a battle playing itself out right now between Bone and Mahoney. Mahoney trying to take a little bit of a look. Looks like somebody's been off in the background. That's going to be Todd Brandt, the American, getting all things wrong. And he is going to find that outside grass coming through Quebec. Let's take a look here at the replay, focusing in on Simpkins right now. Trying to see what Simpkins has. Was there a little bit of contact here? I wonder. Yes, there was, and that's going to be enough to spin the 11 to the outside.
Who was that behind? Boba Newman crashed all on his own accord. So everyone was going off in those couple of corners right there. Go back to live pictures again of the circuit. Josh Brain, great qualifying for him, up in P3. His race pace though, it's not backing that up. I remember these first few laps are basically the exact same conditions as what you do qualifying in. There's no different setups for qualifying, it's a fixed setup series this. And so you are full on fuel for qualifying, as you are full on fuel and on fresh tyres for this race. well, the start of the race, sorry, as Brain pushes it right to the limit. He didn't gain time there. I think he was slipping and sliding as here goes the move up the inside. There's not too many obvious overtaking opportunities. You pointed out at the Andretti straight earlier on, but even that's not particularly easy. And so you do have to be aware of those sorts of half overtaking opportunities, because when you get done there, you feel like an absolute idiot that you didn't cover it off.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to be very opportunistic to be able to get a move there into Clayton or Quebec. As we take a look here out the back of Josh Brain's machine, Roosendahl thought he was going to be able to have a good little run there coming down into the first couple of corners, but it looks like it didn't play itself out. Here's on board with Harmon Bone right now. This is the battle for P6 right now. David Rolston up ahead of him. Bone going to look to the outside, try to sweep down through the S's. As we said, this is an overtaking opportunity, but you have to have a lot of commitment and a lot of gumption to be able to make that move work. They now come down through White's corner. Little bit of squiggliness there for the drivers as Simois up at the front of the field sets the fastest lap of the race, immediately pipped away by Chris Redman. That battle continuing to percolate here at this stage in the race. A little bit of dust kicked up there by the number 8, I believe. That's David Ralston up in front, so that could be a little bit of an opportunity here for Bone, but he's also got to watch out for Mahoney coming in behind. This battle in the mid-pack here, Sam, this really looks like it's starting to be the flashpoint of the race.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's the fastest out of these guys. Brain has started to pull away. I think it was actually Rosendahl who was the one who was running wide at turn 1, so it dropped off slightly. But is Bone a little bit faster? I mean, ooh, is that a spinner ahead? That is that's Galaretta. That is Galaretta from 3rd position. Very disappointing mistake there, because he was comfortably ahead of those drivers beforehand. And we'll get a replay of that absolutely as soon as possible. But that's our first victim at Moss Corner. I've had bets before with, I think, Austin Knight, DJ, about how many drivers would go off at Moss Corner. I think one time I predicted 20 and underestimated it. So that's how tricky this corner is.
Yeah, it certainly is. As we watch here what happened, looks like he just carried a little bit too much speed coming up through the first part of the corner, maybe a little bit of a lock of the rear brakes as he tried to get down onto the binders, and that is just enough. That little bit of a mistake, enough to throw Galaretta around and really, really ruin his race. That Ricardo now having to work his way back up from 9th place position. We check back in on the lead of the race here. Felix Simois up at the front, starting to grow that gap a little bit over Chris Redman as we work on lap 5. The gap now at a full second as they dive on into the Moss hairpin. And looks like here Simois starting to maybe just extend out a little bit more. You can see on your screen, been very, very consistent there over the last couple of laps, and he is looking to just pull away from Redman here at this point.
Teammates, of course, are these two drivers, and so, well, overtaking is tricky in the first place, but it's going to be even more tricky in such a scenario. Redman will be kicking himself for that race start. We'll get a replay of it at some point, because it was not a good launch. Simois was absolutely nailing it though. Redman was on pole position by, I think, about a 10th of a second, so it was tight, could have gone either way. As we could see a move here for P5. Mahoney is past Wollaston. Eric Mahoney is looking very good tonight. Up 3 places. Well, it's not tonight for him. It's similar time, I imagine, to what it is for you, DJ. It's in the afternoon. For me, however, it is during the evening and very dark as well outside. Anyway, Rolliston is going to be overtaken by Bone. These two are definitely racing at night. Nice and cool conditions for them to do some sim racing. Rolliston staying ahead of Bone, but I feel like the car number 8 is really slipping back. He doesn't quite have the pace that he showed in qualifying.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it there, and a little bit of a lockup coming through Moss hairpin. That is going to set up Bone to perfection here. You can see the number 6 driver looking to what will be the outside of the S's, getting a nice slipstream coming down the Mario Andretti straightaway. Now just keeping that look to the outside. Maybe he pulled out a little bit too early there, I wonder, but he's going to be late on the binders, sweeping around the outside. Rolliston not really able to put up any sort of a defense, and that is going to promote Bone up into 6th place, trying trying to close in on Mahoney up in front of him here at this point. That gap holding at about 0.5 of a second as they now work their way through the corners. Excuse me, it's about 1.3 seconds between Mahoney and Bone, so he's got a little bit more work to do. Focusing back on a little farther in the field, here's Diego Statler and Todd Brandt as they come across the line. Hugh Simpkins back in 11th place, and then Tom McLaren, the driver who did not take to the grid here. He looks to be just kind of trundling around here in about 9th place position, just doing what he can. I think maybe learning the track a little bit. Up at the front, though, Felix Simoes starting to grow that gap, crucially out of the draft range of his teammate Chris Redman as he starts to pull away and starts to really get a good run there. You can see there on your screen, though, Redman keeping the gap relatively close, relatively consistent over the past 2 laps. I think it's just a matter of Simoes not making a mistake here and just keeping on the line he's on.
Yeah, it's a tiny difference between these two, but yeah, good effort from the pair. Then that gap, it does open up slightly as you see them race around this Mosport corner. Ever so slight differences you can see in the racing lines, but I think they're both aiming for the exact same spots. Didn't remember how good these cameras are. They're pretty good, these. Yeah, really do get an indication of just how fast these radical SR10s are. Faster than GT3 cars, of course. And got a lot of power to them as well. They're actually faster than the SR8s, which I'm always surprised about because the SR8s feel way quicker to drive. And yet, because of the straight line speeds in these things, the power output, these can go faster around the majority of circuits, I think including this Mosport track, albeit a slightly less advantage. Ooh, that's Rolliston off the circuit. So Rolliston being overtaken a couple of times, clearly pushing really hard to keep up, and he's done the same mistake as what Galarreta did earlier.
Yeah, and that's one of the things when you come up and over Moss Corner, you have to find that fine line. You mentioned a little bit earlier that you've got to be aggressive coming into the corner, but you can't be too aggressive. You really have to let off of all of the inputs and kind of let the car float through the middle of the corner. And as a driver, that's a very, very difficult thing to do. We're going to take a look here on David Rolston as he brings it up. Let's see if we can find out exactly what happened. Yep, just a little bit too much speed there coming through the first part of the corner, and just that little bit of extra speed, that little bit of understeer that's picked up, that is how infinitesimal the margins are coming through that Moss hairpin. We do have a little bit of a battle there as we focus there on David Rolston, but this battle, Eric Mahoney, remember, he was able to move his way by Galarreta a little bit earlier, as was Hartmut Bone, excuse me, behind him. Bone now trying to press his advantage over the Canadian right now, trying to see if he is going to be able to push a little bit here, and this is shaping up to be an interesting battle as the two of them also have Roosendahl right up ahead of them. This could be a 3-way fight before the end of this 19-lap race.
Yeah, well, the lap time comparison on that last lap, a few tenths quicker. Bone seemingly faster than these drivers. Bone had a really good start of qualifying. I think he messed up his 3rd sector on his 2nd qualifying lap, and I think that put him out of position because he's had fantastic pace, and look at the way that he's negotiating the S's at the end of the lap, as that's very wide. Bone could be in with a chance here, having to cover off the inside is Mahoney. Has he covered it off enough though? Bone is going to go for a car width gap. That's all he needs in the vehicle, and I think he has got this one clear. He has got his car ahead. Excellent work there from Hartmut Bone. That was a brave move into turn 1.
A very, very brave move. You hit the nail on the head, Sam. It was a car length gap and no more, no less than that, but yet he was able to do that and move his way forward. I want to give credit, by the way, to Roosendahl, who does have a pretty substantial I rating of about 3K, but only a B license. And so finding himself in 4th position, that will be a very, very good run for them. Obviously, the numbers here in this series indicating who has the highest I rating as they run, really to the surprise of no one up there. Simoes up the front of the field in that coveted number 1 position. A little bit surprising to see Galarreta back down there in 7th, but again, that mistake earlier on from the Iberian driver putting him a little bit farther down in the order. Outside of that, pretty much exactly what you would expect as those numbers cascade down in order. Roosendahl here, though, just having to keep things together. I would be very, very concerned if I were him, knowing that Bone has been able to make that in the past. gas on Mahoney, knowing that he can close in here at this point. I think this is going to be a little bit of an inflection point going forward in the final 9 laps.
Yeah, well, how's that gap shrunk? Quite consistently. Little bits every single lap, couple of tenths every lap. And then if we have a look at how it's compared to Mahoney, actually maintained. So Mahoney not too much of a threat, but Bone the one on the charge. And actually, if we bring Gallaretta in this as well, he must have closed in significantly. He has. Oh, as Rosendahl goes wide, and that has made it very, very easy. Bone would have been lining himself up for a move down the end, Jetty straight, I'm sure, but he's rather been given that overtake in the end. And it was not a tricky move, but Rosendahl's got one opportunity to come back. He's got to make it right now, but he's also got to be aware that Mahoney's going to be quick on the on the inside as well. Rosendahl going to go the long way round. We'll have the inside for the second part of the S's. He's keeping part of his car alongside, but the outside turns into the inside for the final corner. A little bit cautious and a little bit offline, but it's Rosendahl actually with the very poor exit on the end of the lap. And he does drop down into 5th place. Thought he might lose out to Mahoney as well, but Mahoney, I think, made a mistake at the final corner as well. So Bone does eventually consolidate that position, and who that benefited was Riccardo Gallaretta, who's right with these drivers now.
Yeah, Gallaretta been able to close back in as we take a look here on board with the number 2 machine. The Iberian driver starting to close in on this battle in front, getting a little bit of aero wash there in front of him. As you can see, he is definitely pulling away there as we take a look at Gallaretta versus Mahoney, and really and truly pulling on in is that Mahoney taking a little bit of a look at an alternate line coming down into the Moss hairpin, and look at all of those cars, Constantina up together. That is certainly going to bring them into the draft range here. I think Gallaretta could have getting a nice triple draft in front of him here as they run. It looks like Rosendahl maybe a little bit too far back off of Bone, but look at that closing speed in that black number 5. Looks down to the inside, tries to get it. That's not going to work. Mahoney tries to go around the outside. Contact there between the two. They're both able to keep the cars pointed the right way, but that was all kinds of sketchy coming down through the S's.
This is a fixed setup series. What on earth has Rosendahl got to that engine? He must have been hacking the game or something. Insane speed down the straights, just picking up the toe, and very nearly was able to get past. Just tried to get within half a second going onto the Anjet straight. He could be passed on the next lap. Incredible straight line speed there. Really surprised that he managed to get himself in play, and that will give confidence as well to Mahoney and Gallaretta behind. So we've got a fair few more laps of this race to go in order for them to make their impact known. We've also got Brandt being caught by Rolliston. Remember, Rolliston went off at Moss Corner earlier on, and he's, I feel like, just going to make this move in a matter of time. He's significantly faster, 3 tenths faster on that last lap. Might have to go the long way round through the left, but no, he has to back out of it. Not too much of a rush. Even if he gets past, he'll have 7 seconds to catch to the next driver.
Yeah, he'll have plenty of time to do that as we check back in here now. It looks like Eric Mahoney under pressure from Gallaretta. Gallaretta going to go around what will be the outside of the first part of the S's. Can Mahoney be able to hold this out like we saw them do? Inches between the two drivers there as they come down through the first part of the S's. Gallaretta trying to hold out to the best of his ability. Now going to cut back a little bit. Looking at the over-under. He's going to get it done. Look down to the inside there. Brilliant move. Mahoney tries to cross him back over, but that's not going to play itself out. Then the number 7 will find themselves dumped down into 7th position as we now look at Brandt and Rolliston here, as it looks like Rolliston has been able to make that move coming through the S's, so put the American down into 10th place here at this point and put the UK&I driver David Rolston up into P9.
Yep, I think this was a fairly simple one. Look at that closing speed. I did not realise that the toe would be quite so useful around this circuit. And Rolliston coming from a long way back and making that move stick. So good work for the British or Irish driver. Go back to live pictures once again. And no one imminently going to be overtaking soon, but the charge that Gallaretta is on, he could catch and pass Rosendahl by the end of the race. I think Bone is too far up ahead, and actually Bone's pace is excellent. Bone isn't that far off Josh Brain, in fact. If we compare their lap times over, or the time delta, I mean, that's not totally useful because Bone's been in traffic for much of the race. But yeah, it's come down a little bit. Last couple of laps, Bone getting closer.
Yeah, both certainly getting closer here, and we'll have to see if he is indeed able to catch on to that final podium position here for Josh Brain. Only a matter of time will tell, as we've only got about 5 laps to go here. Call it 4.5 as drivers work their way onto the back half of the circuit here at this point. Simoas continues to lead over Chris Redmond. Those two gaps really never in doubt here as they sit a whopping 6 seconds ahead of this man, Josh Brain, the UK&I driver, as Bone now trying to close in behind. Here is your leader, Felix Simoes, who we have so constantly seen here be a dominant force up at the front of this field. Had a couple of rough runs over the course of this season. Fuji coming to mind in particular, where it just looked like he had a run of bad luck, but maybe all of that clearing by the wayside as he now comes out of the final corner, White's corner, and begins on lap 16 here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. There you can see the gap. Looks like he made a little bit of an error there, potentially coming through that final third sector, and that has allowed for Redmond to close back in. The gap under a second here at this point. Gonna maybe get a little bit of a draft coming down on the Mario Andretti straightaway if he's able to keep it together, so maybe this battle for the lead not done yet.
Yeah, we saw him go a bit wide through the first S, and then that put him offline for the second and third one, and it really seemed like he lost, 6 tenths of a second, as it showed. Redmond, though, unable to stay with him through the first sector. It seemed like it's that first sector. In the first couple of laps, it looked like that was where Simoas was able to pull away, so that is where he is feeling comfortable out there. Let's see what the second sector is gonna be like, so they'll be approaching it very soon. That sector is pretty much completely just the final S's. Redmond does close in a bit. That makes sense with the power of the draft, despite him being about 7 tenths of a second back. But still, he'd need another mistake from Simoas in order to bring himself into play from here, as I think Bowen Newman came back out on circuit. He's then gone off the circuit, but good for him for getting back out there. He is 7 laps down, but he wants to complete all the laps if he can possibly help himself.
Yeah, and here is that battle that we prophesied a little bit earlier. Rosendahl and Galarreta starting to come close together here at this point. They work their way through the first corner right now. Rosendahl holding off an advantage here of just a couple of tenths of a second. Let's call it 3 tenths, as Galarreta was certainly quicker on that last lap to the tune of about 3 to 4 tenths of a second. And you see that little bit of a narrower line there for the Iberian driver, really able to close up through Clayton. He is going to try to close in here. Probably not going to be looking at a move going down into Moss Hairpin, but just trying to apply as much pressure to the back here of the Benelux driver to see if he can force an error. Oh, he is going to be right in that opportune area for a slipstream here at this point as they chase their way down the Mario Andretti straightaway. Only 2 laps to go for these two at the line, but here comes Galarreta. He is going to look to what will be the outside of the first part of the S's, and he is going to have an almighty slipstream advantage. He's going to work his way around, but he spins it, gets the car sideways. Brilliant avoidance there by Patrick Rosendahl, and that's going to be Galarreta into the outside wall.
Oh, I thought that was a done deal. Honestly, he just about manages to stay ahead of Stadler, so Galarreta with 2 offs in this race. And let's try to get a replay of what happened to him. I didn't think there was any contact, was there? And yet he just managed to lose control of the car, slightly offline. Albeit he's, I think, made this move already in this race. Oh, he lost it very early on, didn't he? It was just that initial turn, and remember the tyres do overheat as the race goes on. And maybe that was the difference compared to when he's tried that move earlier on in the race.
Yeah, I think the tires maybe just screaming out a little bit more as Galarreta is going to be able to find himself back around into 7th place position. Statler may be the one who can try to push on him just a little bit here at this point, but we will have to see. We know the pace that that number 2 machine has over the course of the day as they work their way now down on the Mario and Jerry straightaway, trying to see what they are able to do as the white flag is in the air. White flag in the air for Felix Simoas and Chris Redmond here at this point. They are going to bring their way back on to the front, the first couple of corners here, down into Clayton and into Quebec. This gap at about 5 tenths of a second, tantalizing here at this point, but I'm not sure if Redmond's going to be able to close this down.
Good effort from Redmond to even bring himself into play in this race, honestly. because he was a while away from it earlier on. But as I tried to get the correct graphic up, there it is. So yeah, it was up at 1.6 seconds earlier on, but he's got it down to 6/10, and this will be close heading into the S's, but it's just a little bit too far. And maybe if we had an extra lap, he could have perhaps got himself into play. Or maybe if this straight was an extra 300 meters long, maybe he'd be able to get into play. But honestly, that race start, I think, is going to prove decisive.
I think it is as well, as they now work their way through the S's. Redmond looking, but the time is running out as they come down into White's corner for the final time. He is going to be within about a car length of Simoes. Gets a little bit squirrely there, but Simoes will cross over the line to take victory here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Redmond will take second, with Josh Brain flashing the headlights to come home in third. Rosendahl, after having his hands full through the majority of the race, will find himself in P5, and Eric Mahoney, the Canadian local hero here, will cross over in P6.
Galaretta holds on against Sadler, who was struggling in those closing stages. Is Simpkins going to be able to get past Brandt? No, he's too far back. These two are fairly evenly on pace. They're not teammates, but they both love some green on their Radical SR10s, and they finish in 10th and 11th places. McLaren a lap down, and Newman will be the last one to cross the line. He ended up 7 laps down at the end of the race after having to pick up repairs earlier on in the event. But yeah, just great work there from Simoes. It really does demonstrate how important those race starts are, DJ, because I think him and Redmond, as Redmond showed in qualifying, he had the pace to beat Felix tonight, but Felix just absolutely nailed that launch.
Yeah, absolutely nailed that launch, and I have to agree with you there. That was really the linchpin in the terms of the race itself. That good getaway there for Felix certainly allowed him to be able to pull himself ahead, and at a circuit such as Canadian Tire Motorsport Park that is so difficult to get an overtake on, that proved to be the nail in the coffin for the rest of the field. Let's run you through the final finishing order here as it was. Felix Simoes was able to take victory over Chris Redmond, Josh Brain, and then Hartmut Bone in P4. Patrick Rosendahl is going to round out your top 5 with Eric Mahoney and Ricardo Galaretta in P7. He was down 3 positions on the day. Then it was Diego Statler in P8. David Rolston down 4 positions in P9. Todd Brandt only able to come home in P10 despite starting off in 9th. Then it was Juice Simpkins, Tom McLaren, and Bowman Newman rounding out your field here today. And it looks like we do indeed have your race winner here ready to join us. Felix Simoes joining us here in the booth. And Felix, I want to start at the start. A brilliant getaway for you. It looked like you were able to just get that power down and streak off into the lead right from the drop of the green flag.
Yes, that was the case. I had a very good start. My teammate Chris, unfortunately, not so good start for him. And then, as you're saying in the podcast, it's very difficult to keep up with the car in front if the pace is similar. So yeah, that was basically I won the race on the start, and it was just a matter of not doing any mistakes. Although the last couple of laps were very difficult. The rear tires were sliding a lot. And Chris, clearly his tires were better than mine. So yeah, I thought, okay, he might get me, but in the end, it all turned out good for me. And yeah, that was it, basically. Not much to say about this race.
Yeah, it looks pretty simple there for you at the front of the field. I know you and Chris are teammates. I'm curious, do you guys have any communication over the course of the race in situations like this when you're running so close to one another, or is it a little bit every man for himself?
No, we do communicate. We are on Discord, but we don't talk that much during the race. And there was nothing arranged. I mean, we would fight for the win as with any other driver.
I would love to see that even among teammates. You have that respect and ability to race each other. But looking ahead to next week, we head to Mount Panorama. Bathurst, always one of the trickiest circuits anytime it shows up on the schedule. How do you think that's going to go for you and for the Radical Series as a whole?
Yeah, let's see how it goes. Mount Panorama Bathurst is definitely not one of my best tracks, but it is a classic. So and I think the track fits any car anyway. So that's it. I'm looking forward, to be honest. I'm really looking forward to see how it goes. And I hope it attracts a bit more of the fastest series drivers, because they have been missing in the last couple of races, and that's probably one of the reasons I won, because the fastest guys were not here today.
Well, I know I'd certainly count you among some of the fastest up there, so don't sell yourself short, my friend. But a win today. Who makes this possible? Who would you like to thank?
Yeah, okay. My teammate Chris for all the practice that we do together. You guys, Apex TV, broadcasting the races, and that's it basically.
All right. Well, Felix, thank you so much for joining us up here in the booth, and congratulations on another victory.
Thank you.
All right, that was Felix Simoes, your victor from today. A great race for him, and you heard it there, Sam, really saying that from the drop of the green flag, it was just all about getting out to the front as quickly as possible.
Yeah, very much, confirming what we were thinking previously, and yeah, good to hear them, talking about how they can race against one another, that there was nothing organised, that you're still going to take it a little bit easier on your teammate, and Chris just was never quite in that position to make a move due to this Mosport circuit. But I think next time out, DJ, Bathurst, if we continue to see that very powerful draft as we saw it tonight, I think we could see overtaking a lot easier in 7 days' time.
Yeah, I certainly think we could as well. It's going to be a very, very interesting run there. Obviously, plenty of big straightaways there on Bathurst, really broken up by the fact that, there's a twisty bit, as we like to say, right in the middle of the track, where you have just got to be on your game the entire way through. But I'm very much looking forward to that. A little bit of a dichotomy in terms of running here and running there. Going to be pretty fantastic to see what is there. And I have to agree with Felix that I'd love to see a big full field out there, as that always leads to some great action if we've got a big 20-plus car grid ready to take on the challenges of Mount Panorama. But as for today, that's about going to wrap things up for us here on Apex Racing TV. On behalf of myself, DJ Clark, as well as my partner here in the booth, Sam Fitzpatrick, who's also on directing and producing duties here today, it's been an absolute pleasure to bring you the racing action live from Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. We will see you next week at Mount Panorama, and until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com